When people talk about Asia, they often mention its giants, China, Japan, India, but behind the scenes, there's a nation whose influence is felt not just in Asia, but across the world. And its greatest export is not oil, not technology, not weapons. It is its people, the Filipinos. For decades, millions of Filipinos have left their homeland to work abroad. They've built skyscrapers, cared for the elderly, healed the sick, taught children, cooked meals, and sailed the seas. They've kept entire economies moving, often silently, often invisibly. But here's the truth. Many of the countries that once depended on them now face a painful reality. They pushed Filipinos away. They replaced them. They underestimated them. And now, they regret it. Today, we uncover the story of 15 countries that regret losing Filipinos, and why this diaspora has become one of the Philippines' greatest sources of power. The Philippines is home to over 115 million people, but step outside its borders, and you'll find another 12 million Filipinos living and working abroad. This global diaspora is one of the largest in the world, and it stretches from the Middle East to North America, from Europe to Asia Pacific. They are nurses in the UK, seafarers on international ships, engineers in the Middle East, teachers in Canada, domestic workers in Hong Kong and Singapore, caregivers in Japan, tech workers in the US. They are everywhere. Filipinos don't just work. They change societies. They build bonds of trust. They influence culture. And when they leave, entire industries feel the loss. Let's journey country by country to see how this unfolds. Saudi Arabia. The kingdom built by foreign hands. Saudi Arabia has long been the #1 destination for Filipino workers. At one point, over 2 million Filipinos lived and worked in the kingdom. They were engineers, construction workers, nurses, domestic helpers, and more. Filipinos literally helped build modern Saudi Arabia. The glittering skyscrapers of Riyadh and Jeddah, the airports, the hospitals, the roads, many of them carry the sweat of Filipino labor. But stories of abuse, unpaid wages, and poor working conditions became too common. The Philippine government at times issued deployment bans. Tens of thousands returned home, while others sought work in friendlier nations. The result? Saudi Arabia faced a labor shortage. Construction projects slowed. Families who had long relied on Filipina housemaids struggled. Hospitals faced staffing crises. Even Saudi officials admitted publicly that replacing Filipinos wasn't easy. No other nationality matched their skill, loyalty, and adaptability. Saudi Arabia may have oil wealth, but losing Filipinos showed them something money couldn't instantly buy: trust. United Arab Emirates, UAE, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Sharjah, cities that rose from desert sands into global hubs, owe much of their service sector to Filipinos. Hotels, malls, airlines, and hospitals thrived with Filipino staff. Tourists often said, "It's the Filipinos that make Dubai feel welcoming." But as the UAE tightened visa rules and global economics shifted, many Filipinos left. Suddenly, the hospitality industry wasn't the same. Hotels reported service declines. Airlines like Emirates missed the warmth of Filipino flight crews. Families noticed that the unique care of Filipina nannies was irreplaceable. The UAE still actively courts Filipinos today, proof that losing them was a mistake they don't want to repeat. Kuwait, the household crisis. Kuwait had one of the highest numbers of Filipina domestic helpers. They became the backbone of Kuwaiti homes, but reports of mistreatment, unpaid salaries, and tragic cases made headlines worldwide. The Philippine government stepped in, halting deployments multiple times. Thousands of Filipinos left. And what happened? Kuwaiti families panicked. Parents working full-time struggled without trusted caregivers. Hospitals complained of nurse shortages. Many publicly admitted, "No one cares for our families like Filipinos do." Kuwait may have treated Filipinos poorly, but losing them showed just how indispensable they had become. Singapore, the silent backbone. Singapore prides itself as a modern, efficient city-state, but behind its success are thousands of Filipino workers. From domestic helpers to IT specialists, they kept Singapore running. When policies tightened to reduce reliance on foreign workers, Filipinos left. Suddenly, hospitals faced longer waiting times. Schools lost teachers. Homes missed the maternal presence of Filipinas who had become second mothers to Singaporean children. Even today, Singapore admits its dependency. Filipinos aren't just workers, they were part of the city's family. 5. Hong Kong. Sundays without them. If you visit Hong Kong on a Sunday, you'll see parks, streets, and public squares filled with Filipinas laughing, singing, and sharing food. They are domestic workers, caregivers, and service staff who, on their one free day, create a vibrant community. But over the years, rising costs, long hours, and mistreatment forced many to leave. When that happened, Hong Kong families felt the crisis immediately. Working couples struggled without childcare. The elderly were left unattended. Many employers admitted publicly that Filipino helpers had become part of their families. Hong Kong's regret is clear. Life without Filipinos is simply harder. 6. Japan. The aging nation's missed opportunity. Japan faces one of the world's biggest demographic crises. Its population is old and shrinking. Filipinos once filled crucial gaps as caregivers, factory workers, and entertainers. But strict language requirements, rigid cultural barriers, and tough visa policies made it hard for Filipinos to stay. Many left. Soon, Japan faced a care crisis. Nursing homes lacked staff. Factories slowed. Even local governments admitted they needed Filipinos back. Now, Japan is offering language schools and better contracts, desperate to bring back those they once pushed away. 7. South Korea. Factories without workers. Filipinos worked in South Korea's factories, farms, and homes. They also entered entertainment, teaching, and service sectors. But discrimination and visa issues caused many to leave. Factories that had once relied on Filipino skill faced production slowdowns. Farms lacked reliable workers. Even Korean households admitted Filipinas brought a warmth and dedication unmatched by others. Today, South Korea actively recruits them again, realizing too late the value they had lost. 8. United States of America. The hidden backbone. The U.S. has one of the largest Filipino populations, nearly 4 million. They've been part of American life for over a century, from farm laborers in California to nurses in New York to engineers in Silicon Valley. But anti-immigration policies, racism, and systemic neglect pushed many Filipinos away or left them undervalued. The pandemic revealed just how critical they were. Filipino nurses made up a huge portion of the U.S. healthcare workforce, but when some left or fell victim to the virus, hospitals collapsed under pressure. The U.S. realized that without Filipinos, its healthcare system was weaker than anyone expected. United Kingdom. When the NHS cried out, the UK's National Health Service, NHS, is one of the most respected healthcare systems in the world, and it owes much of its success to Filipino nurses. But when immigration policies tightened and Brexit reshaped labor laws, fewer Filipinos came. Thousands left. The NHS soon reported record shortages. Hospitals were stretched. Patients waited longer. Officials admitted the system relied heavily on Filipinos. The British public also noticed. Many families missed the compassion and dedication of Filipino caregivers. 10. Canada. Families left struggling. Canada has long welcomed Filipinos, especially in healthcare and caregiving, but as pathways to residency became stricter, some Filipinos left. Suddenly, Canadian families who had depended on Filipina nannies struggled with childcare. Nursing homes missed the warmth of Filipino caregivers. Even rural schools and hospitals reported shortages. Today, Canada is opening doors again, proving how much they regret losing them. 11. Italy. Faith and family broken. Italy once had a strong Filipino community, especially in caregiving and church service. Filipinos became part of Italian households, caring for children and the elderly. But when Italy's economy weakened, many Filipinos left. Families realized they had lost more than workers. They had lost trusted companions. Even churches felt emptier without the active Filipino communities. Spain, the forgotten connection. Spain and the Philippines share over 300 years of history. Thousands of Filipinos once worked in Spain as caregivers, teachers, and cultural workers. But as Spain's economy declined, many left. Spaniards soon realized they had lost a bridge to a shared cultural past. Filipinos weren't just workers. They were reminders of history and shared language. Australia. Communities without builders. Australia benefited greatly from Filipino nurses, engineers, and skilled workers. But visa restrictions and rising costs pushed some away. Hospitals in rural areas reported shortages, construction slowed. Communities that had grown around Filipinos felt their absence deeply. 14. New Zealand. The farms went quiet. New Zealand is famous for its breathtaking landscapes, rolling green hills, and booming agriculture industry. Its economy relies heavily on farming, dairy production, and fruit harvesting. But behind those scenic postcards was a reality. Much of this industry was powered by foreign labor, and Filipinos were among the best. For years, Filipinos worked tirelessly on dairy farms, vineyards, and fruit orchards. They woke before sunrise, braved freezing winters, and endured long hours of physical work that many locals no longer wanted to do. They were praised for their discipline, loyalty, and willingness to adapt to New Zealand's demanding rural lifestyle. Farmers often said, "If you give a Filipino a task, you know it will be done right." But stricter immigration rules and limited work visas began to push Filipinos out. Some were unable to renew their contracts. Others left because opportunities in countries like Canada or Australia looked more stable. The effect was immediate and devastating. Farms that once relied on Filipinos suddenly faced labor shortages. Dairy production slowed. Fruit harvests were left rotting in the fields. The government even reported seasonal worker shortages, warning that the agriculture sector was at risk. New Zealand farmers themselves admitted, "Without Filipinos, our farms cannot survive." Many said it wasn't just about labor, it was about trust. Filipinos had become part of farming families, living on site, raising their own children in rural towns, and integrating into small communities. When they left, the silence was more than just the missing workers. It was the loss of relationships, the laughter in the barns, the meals shared in farmhouses. New Zealand learned the hard way that while machines can milk cows and harvest crops, they cannot replace the human touch, dedication, and loyalty of Filipinos. Malaysia, the silent loss. Malaysia shares both geography and history with the Philippines, especially in the state of Sabah. For decades, Filipinos crossed the sea to work in plantations, factories, and households. They brought skills in farming, fishing, and caregiving, and they quickly became part of Malaysia's workforce. In households, Filipino domestic workers were trusted caregivers. In factories, Filipino men and women handled technical jobs with efficiency. In plantations, they harvested palm oil, one of Malaysia's biggest exports. Filipinos even influenced Malaysian culture. From food to music to language, the Filipino presence was undeniable. But tensions grew. Political disputes, questions of nationality, and poor worker protections created friction. Many Filipinos faced discrimination, lack of legal status, and unsafe working conditions. Over time, thousands left, either returning to the Philippines or seeking safer opportunities abroad. The result was a silent but deep loss. Plantations struggled to find equally skilled replacements. Families admitted that the warmth and care of Filipino helpers was unmatched. Factories slowed production due to lack of disciplined workers. Even communities that once thrived with Filipino festivals and culture grew quieter. Malaysia may not always publicly admit it, but the absence of Filipinos created a vacuum. Workers from other countries were brought in, but employers often said they lacked the same reliability and adaptability. Filipinos were not just filling jobs, they were stabilizing industries. To this day, some Malaysian families still talk about their former Filipino helpers as part of the family, showing that the emotional connection went far beyond employment. Losing Filipinos was not only an economic hit, but also a cultural and social loss that Malaysia still feels, even if silently. While these 15 countries highlight the regret of losing Filipinos, the truth goes much further. The Filipino presence is global. On massive cargo ships that cross the Pacific, Atlantic, and Indian Oceans, chances are high that the crew is majority Filipino. In fact, nearly 1/3 of the world's seafarers are Filipino. They keep the arteries of global trade alive, yet their absence would grind shipping to a halt. In hospitals from London to Los Angeles, Filipino nurses are often the ones holding patients' hands, staying calm in emergencies, and working long hours with compassion. Remove them, and entire healthcare systems crumble. In schools across Canada, the Middle East, and Asia, Filipino teachers shape the next generation. In households, they raise children as if they were their own, often sacrificing time away from their families back home. The diaspora of Filipinos is not just large, it is deeply embedded into the everyday life of nations. And when they leave, the world feels it. The Philippines has been called many things: the pearl of the Orient Seas, a nation of resilience, an archipelago of beauty. But its greatest title may be this: the heart of the world's workforce. When countries lose Filipinos, they don't just lose labor. They lose kindness, loyalty, dedication, and a human connection that money cannot buy. They lose nurses who treat patients like family. They lose farmers who work fields with passion. They lose teachers who shape young minds. They lose caregivers who give dignity to the elderly. And this is why 15 nations, from Saudi Arabia to Canada, from Japan to New Zealand, regret losing Filipinos. Because the Filipino spirit is not easily replaced. It proves one thing: the greatest strength of the Philippines has never been its land or wealth, but its people. So the next time someone underestimates the Philippines, remind them of this. The world runs a little smoother, a little kinder, and a little stronger because of Filipinos. And when they are gone, the silence is deafening.